Helena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the human defense ship Terra's Shield, watching the stars through the wide viewing screen. The year was 2387, and humans had been part of the Galactic Consortium for over 200 years. But Helena never forgot that they were still considered the newcomers, the young ones who needed watching. The consortium was made up of 12 different alien species, all working together in peace. At least that's what they called it. Helena had her doubts. The tall, crystal-like Zephyrians led everything. They made all the important decisions and told everyone else what to do. The consortium followed something called the Doctrine of Measured Response. This meant that if there was ever a fight, it had to be small, careful, and civilized. Helena hated that word. Civilized. It meant weak to her. When humans first joined the consortium, they had been different. Humans fought hard and used whatever weapons worked best. But the aliens didn't like that. They said humans were too aggressive, too dangerous. So they made rules. Human weapons were taken away and replaced with weaker ones that the consortium approved. Human colonies could only be built in certain places. Even the number of human babies born each year was watched and controlled. Commander Helena Vasquez was in charge of the Colonial Defense Force. She was one of the few humans who remembered what her people used to be like. Her grandmother had told her stories about the old days, when humans fought their own wars and didn't ask permission from anyone. But those days were long gone. "Commander," said Lieutenant James Park, her second in command. "We're getting a message from Consortium Central." Helena sighed. Another meeting, probably. Another lecture about following the rules and being good citizens of the galaxy. "Put it on screen, Lieutenant." The image that appeared made Elena's blood run cold. High resonant. Zethka, the leader of the Zephyrians, looked worried. His crystal body was glowing bright blue, which meant he was stressed. Behind him, Helena could see other alien leaders talking quickly among themselves. "Commander Vasquez." Zethka's voice came through the speakers with a musical tone that always annoyed Helena. "We have a situation. Unknown ships have appeared at the edge of our galaxy. They have attacked and destroyed the mining station at Kepler 442. Helena frowned. "Destroyed? Who attacked it? Pirates?" "We don't know," Zethka admitted. "The ships appear to be artificial constructs, machines. They consumed the entire station, breaking it down to its basic atoms. Nothing was left." The bridge went quiet. Helena felt a cold fear in her stomach. "Consumed? You mean they ate it?" "That appears to be correct. We are calling an emergency meeting of the Consortium Council. All defense forces are to maintain standard readiness protocols. Do not take any aggressive action without authorization." The screen went dark. Helena stared at it for a long moment. Standard readiness protocols. That meant they should sit and wait while the council talked and talked and talked, sir, Lieutenant Park said quietly. "My wife and kids are on New Geneva Colony. If these machine things are coming this way..." Helena put a hand on his shoulder. "We'll protect them, James, that's what we do." But even as she said it, Helena wondered if they really could. Human defense ships were limited by consortium regulations. Their weapons could barely punch through the armor of a medium-sized asteroid, let alone something that could eat an entire space station. Over the next few days, more reports came in. The machine ships, which everyone started calling Devourers, had hit 3 more outposts. Each time, they completely destroyed everything, and everyone. They turned metal, rock, and even people into more of themselves. The Devourers were growing stronger with each attack. The Consortium Council met for hours every day. Helena watched the broadcasts and wanted to scream. The alien leaders talked about appropriate responses and measured escalation. They formed committees to study the problem and committees to study the committees. Meanwhile, the Devourers kept coming. Helena called her friend Captain Marcus Chen, who commanded another defense ship. "Marcus, have you seen the latest reports?" Marcus appeared on her screen, looking tired. "Yeah. These things hit the Altarian research base yesterday. 60,000 people, Helena. Gone in less than an hour." "And what did the council do?" "They sent a strongly worded message to the Devourers asking them to stop." Marcus's voice was bitter. When that didn't work, they formed a new committee to write a better message. Helena closed her eyes. This was madness. Marcus, do you remember the stories our parents told us about the old human wars? You mean back when we could actually fight back? Yeah, I remember. What would our ancestors think of us now? Marcus was quiet for a moment. They'd probably ask why we let someone else decide how we defend our families. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She walked through her ship, looking at the young men and women who served under her command. They were good people, brave people. But they had been raised in the consortium way. They believed in following rules and asking permission. They had never learned to be truly dangerous. Elena's computer chimed with an incoming message. It was from her daughter Sarah, who lived on Earth. Mom, are you okay? The news says those machine things are getting closer. Some people here are talking about evacuating to the inner systems. Elena recorded a reply. Don't worry, sweetheart, we'll stop them. But would they? With approved weapons and approved tactics and approved strategies? Elena had read the reports. The Devourer ships were huge, heavily armored, and they could repair themselves by eating whatever was around them. The consortium's careful, civilized weapons were like throwing rocks at a mountain. A week later, Elena got the call she had been dreading. The Devourers had reached the outer human colonies. 3 worlds in the Centauri system were under attack. Elena's ships were ordered to respond, but only with minimum necessary force, and only after getting permission from a Zephyrian commander. Elena watched on her screen as the human colony ship New Hope tried to evacuate civilians from Centauri Prime. The colony ship was slow and defenseless. The Devourer vessels moved in like sharks, their metal hulls gleaming in the light of the system's twin stars. Sir, Lieutenant Park said, his voice shaking. Request permission to engage the enemy vessels. Elena opened a channel to the Zephyrian command ship. This is Commander Vasquez requesting immediate combat authorization. Human civilians are in danger. The reply took 10 minutes. 10 minutes while people died. When it finally came, it was from a junior Zephyrian officer. Commander Vasquez, you are authorized to use Level 2 defensive measures only. Do not damage the enemy vessels unnecessarily. We are still trying to establish communication with them. Elena stared at the screen in disbelief. Level 2 defensive measures, those are barely stronger than warning shots. But she followed orders. She always followed orders. Elena's ships fired their approved weapons at the Devourer vessels. The energy beams bounced off the alien hulls like flashlights hitting mirrors. The Devourers didn't even notice. Elena watched helplessly as the New Hope was torn apart. 40,000 people turned into raw materials for the enemy. 40,000 humans who died while Elena followed the rules. That night, Elena sat alone in her quarters. On her desk was an old picture of her grandmother, a woman who had fought in the last free human war before they joined the consortium. Her grandmother had once told her, Elena, there comes a time when being civilized means letting evil win. When that day comes, you have to choose what matters more, being good or being right. Elena had never understood what that meant. Until now. She opened a secure channel to Marcus and the other human commanders. When they appeared on her screen, she could see the same anger and frustration in their eyes. Tomorrow, Elena said quietly, I'm going to do something that will probably get me court-martialed. But I can't watch our people die while we play, by someone else's rules anymore. What are you thinking? Marcus asked. Elena looked at her grandmother's picture. I'm thinking it's time to remind the galaxy why they were afraid of humans in the first place. The emergency session of the Consortium Council was chaos. Representatives from 12 different species filled the Great Hall, their voices mixing into a cacophony of fear and confusion. Elena sat in the human section, watching as the aliens argued about response protocols while more worlds burned. High-Resonant Zethka called for order, his crystal body flashing red with frustration. The Devourer fleet has consumed 17 star systems in the past month. Our current defensive strategies are proving insufficient. Elena almost laughed. Insufficient was one way to put it. The truth was that the consortium's careful, measured responses were completely useless. Every time they sent a fleet to stop the Devourers, the machines adapted and grew stronger. The alien weapons, designed for civilized warfare between living beings, barely scratched the enemy's metal hulls. Perhaps we need to increase our response level to Category 4, suggested Ambassador Veltar of the Altarian Republic. Her blue skin was pale with worry. We could deploy heavier weapons. Absolutely not, Zethka's voice rang through the hall. Category 4 weapons cause unnecessary destruction. We are not barbarians. There must be a diplomatic solution. Elena stood up. The hall went quiet as hundreds of alien eyes turned to look at her. Humans were rarely allowed to speak at council meetings. High resonant, Elena said, trying to keep her voice calm. With respect, these machines don't want to talk. They want to eat everything in the galaxy, including us. Commander Vasquez. Zethka's tone was condescending, like an adult talking to a child. I understand that humans have a tendency toward violence, but we are a civilized society. We solve problems through reason and measured force. Measured force? Elena felt her anger rising. You want to know what measured force got us? 3. Human colonies are gone. 60 million people dead. And what was our response? We sent them a strongly worded message asking them to stop. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some aliens nodded in agreement, but many looked shocked at Elena's disrespectful tone. Zethka's crystals glowed brighter. Commander, you forget your place. Humanity joined the consortium as junior members. You agreed to follow our guidance. Our people are dying, Elena said, her voice getting louder. And you want us to die quietly and politely so we don't upset your rules. That's enough. Zethka struck the floor with his resonant staff. Commander Vasquez, you are out of order. Security, escort her out. 2 Zephyrian guards moved toward Elena, but she held up a hand. I'm leaving. But I want everyone in this room to remember this moment. When the Devourers reach your homeworlds, when your families are being turned into raw materials, remember that you chose politics over survival. Elena walked out of the council hall with her head held high. Behind her, she could hear the aliens, resuming their endless debate about proper procedures and authorized responses. 3 days later, the call came that Elena had been dreading. The Devourers had reached New Geneva, humanity's largest colony world. 2 million people lived there, including families of many human soldiers. Elena watched the live feed from her ship's bridge. The colony's defenses were firing everything they had at the approaching Devourer fleet. Their weapons lit up the darkness of space like fireworks, but the enemy ships kept coming. The machine vessels were massive, each one the size of a city. They moved with purpose, ignoring the desperate attacks of the human defenders. Sir, Lieutenant Park said, his voice breaking, my family is down there. Elena put her hand on his shoulder. I know, James. Mine too. The consortium response fleet was 3 hours away. They would arrive just in time to write a report about how 2 million humans died. Elena opened a channel to all human ships in the area. Captain Marcus Chen's face appeared on her screen, along with 5 other human commanders. Elena, what are your orders? Marcus asked. His own daughter lived on New Geneva. The consortium says we have to wait for authorization, Elena said. Level 2 defensive measures only. We're not allowed to risk damaging the enemy ships. The other commanders stared at her in disbelief. 2 million people, whispered Captain Torres from the Defiance. And we're supposed to watch them die because we might hurt the machines that are killing them? Elena looked at each face on her screen. These were good officers, loyal to the consortium and its rules. But they were also human. And humans protected their families. I'm going to say something now, Elena said quietly. And after I say it, there's no going back. We'll all be court-martialed. We'll be thrown out of the consortium. We'll be branded as rogue elements and dangerous criminals. She paused, looking at the tactical display where New Geneva was marked as a red dot under attack. I don't care anymore, Elena said. I'm done watching our people die while we follow someone else's rules. I'm engaging the enemy with everything we have. Any captain who wants to follow me, now's the time. Anyone who wants to keep following consortium orders can leave now. No shame in it. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Marcus smiled grimly. Elena, I've been waiting my whole career for someone to say that. The righteous fury is with you. One by one, the other captains nodded. Captain Torres, Captain Williams, Captain Anderson, and Captain Kim. Every human ship in range chose to follow Elena instead of the consortium. All right then, Elena said. Let's show these machines what happens when you threaten human families. All ships, maximum speed to New Geneva. And James? Lieutenant Park looked up at her with tears in his eyes. Get me a channel to Earth Command, Elena continued. Emergency priority. I need to talk to Admiral Peterson. The channel opened, and the weathered face of Admiral Charles Peterson appeared on the screen. He was the highest-ranking human in the consortium military, and Elena's former mentor. Elena, what the hell are you doing? I'm getting reports that you're violating direct orders. Admiral, we need the real ships, Elena said. The ones in the deep storage facilities, the ones we're not supposed to talk about. Peterson's face went pale. Elena, you know I can't authorize that. Those weapons were banned by the Treaty of Titan. If we use them, the consortium will expel humanity permanently. Sir, the consortium is letting our people die. 2 million humans are about to be turned into scrap metal, and we're supposed to watch because our weapons might be too effective. Peterson was quiet for a long moment. On the tactical screen, Elena could see the Devourer ships beginning their attack on New Geneva's orbital stations. Elena, if I give you what you're asking for, there's no going back. Humanity will be on its own against the galaxy. We're already on our own, Admiral. The question is whether we're going to die on our knees or fight on our feet. Peterson closed his eyes. When he opened them again, Elena could see the old soldier that had fought in humanity's last independent war. Protocol Omega is authorized, Peterson said quietly. God help us all. The word sent a chill through Elena's bridge. Protocol Omega was a legend, a ghost story that older officers whispered about in private. It was the activation code for humanity's true military capability, the weapons and ships that had been hidden away when they joined the consortium. As Elena's small fleet raced toward New Geneva, her communications officer reported something impossible. Commander, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout human space. Ships are launching from everywhere. Bases that aren't supposed to exist. Ships that aren't on any official registry. Elena smiled for the first time in weeks. Lieutenant, Park sent a message to the Consortium Council. Tell them humanity formally withdraws from all military cooperation treaties. Tell them we're going to save our people using any means necessary. What about the consequences? Park asked. Elena looked at the screen showing New Geneva under attack. James, when someone's trying to kill your family, there are no consequences. There's only winning or dying. As her ship approached the battle, Elena opened a channel to all human forces, both official and the ones that weren't supposed to exist. This is Commander Elena Vasquez to all human military assets. Today we stop pretending to be civilized. Today we remember what we really are. We are the species that conquered our own world through war. We are the people who built weapons, so terrible that aliens made us promise never to use them again. She paused, watching as the first of humanity's hidden ships appeared on her sensors. Today, we break that promise. For our families, for our future, for the right to exist in a galaxy that wants us to die quietly. The Devourers were about to learn what humans were really capable of when they stopped following someone else's rules. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in bunkers that had been forgotten by most of humanity, ancient machines woke up for the first time in 2 centuries. Protocol Omega was not just a code, it was a complete transformation of human civilization, from peaceful members of the consortium into something the galaxy had hoped never to see again. Admiral Peterson stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching as status lights across the solar system changed from red to green. Each light represented a hidden facility, a secret shipyard, or a weapons depot that officially didn't exist. Sir, his aide reported, all deep storage facilities are responding. The Martian underground shipyards are coming online. The asteroid belt manufacturing stations are activating. Even the Pluto research facility is powering up. Peterson nodded grimly. When humanity had joined the consortium, they had been forced to give up their most powerful weapons. But humans were clever. They didn't destroy their war machines, they just hid them very, very well. "What's our total available force?" Peterson asked. The aide checked his screens. 1,200 warships of various classes. 4,000 automated defense platforms. And sir, the Berserker units are requesting activation codes. Peterson felt a chill. The Berserkers were artificial intelligences designed for one purpose: to kill anything that threatened humanity. They were smart, ruthless, and completely without mercy. Even during humanity's darkest wars, the Berserkers had been considered too dangerous to use, except as a last resort. "Not yet," Peterson said. "Let's see what the conventional forces can do first." At New Geneva, Elena watched in amazement as the space around her filled with human ships. Not the small, limited vessels of the Colonial Defense Force, but massive, warships bristling with weapons that could crack planets in half. The first to arrive was the dreadnought Vengeance, commanded by Elena's old friend Captain Sarah Chen, Marcus's sister. The ship was 3 times larger than anything in the consortium fleet, and it looked like it had been designed by someone who really wanted to hurt things. "Elena," Sarah's voice came over the communications channel. "Sorry we're late. Had to dust off the cobwebs and remember which button fires the planet killers." Despite everything, Elena smiled. "Sarah, please tell me you brought friends." "Oh, I brought lots of friends. And Elena, we're not following consortium rules anymore. What happened next changed the course of galactic history forever. The Devourer fleet attacking New Geneva consisted of 50 massive ships, each one heavily armored and equipped with weapons that could tear through consortium defenses like paper. They had never faced serious resistance before. Everything in the galaxy had been weak, easy prey. The human fleet that arrived was different. Elena's small force of 6 ships hit first, but not with their old, approved weapons. Admiral Peterson had authorized emergency upgrades, and the ship's weapon systems had been replaced with technology that made the Devourer's adaptive armor useless. Captain Marcus Chen fired the first shot. His ship's main gun sent a beam of energy that didn't just hit the nearest Devourer, it went straight through it and hit 2 more ships behind it. The enemy vessels simply ceased to exist. Their metal hulls vaporized in an instant. "Well," Marcus said over the comm channel, "that worked better than expected. The Devourers tried to adapt, changing their armor configuration to resist the human weapons. But Elena's fleet was already switching tactics. They didn't fight like the consortium, with careful formations and measured responses. They fought, like humans had always fought, with overwhelming violence and complete ruthlessness. Captain Torres launched a wave of kamikaze drones that the Devourers couldn't track fast enough to stop. The drones punched through enemy hulls and exploded, filling the machine ships with superheated plasma. Captain Williams used gravity bombs that created tiny black holes, crushing entire sections of enemy vessels. But it was the Vengeance that showed the galaxy what humanity had become. Sarah Chen's ship didn't just fight the Devourers, it hunted them. The dreadnought moved through space like a predator, using weapons that the consortium had banned centuries ago. Reality-warping devices that made enemy ships forget how to exist. Quantum torpedoes that attacked targets in multiple dimensions at once. And most terrifying of all, the Genesis cannon, a weapon that could rewrite the laws of physics in a small area of space. The Devourer fleet, which had never lost a battle, was being systematically destroyed by 6 human ships. "Sir," Lieutenant Park said, his voice filled with awe, "the enemy is retreating." Elena couldn't believe it. The machines that had consumed 17 star systems were running away from humanity. But the battle wasn't over yet. More human ships were arriving every minute, and each one was more terrifying than the last. The Hellfire arrived with weapons that set space itself on fire. The Worldbreaker carried bombs that could crack moons in half. The Nightmare was covered in so many different weapon systems that it looked like a flying arsenal. Admiral Peterson's voice came over the fleet communications. "All human forces, this is Luna Command. Priority targets are any Devourer vessels heading toward inhabited systems. Rules of engagement are simple. If it's not human and it's shooting at us, kill it. Sir, Elena said, what about consortium regulations? The Treaty of Titan? The Treaty of Titan is suspended indefinitely, Peterson replied. As of today, humanity is operating under wartime protocols. That means we use whatever weapons are necessary to protect our people. Elena felt a mixture of excitement and fear. Humanity was finally free to fight without restrictions, but she wondered what they would become in the process. The answer came, sooner than she expected. News of the battle at New Geneva spread throughout the galaxy faster than light. The Consortium Council was in emergency session, with alien leaders demanding to know how humanity had hidden such powerful weapons. Hi. Resonant Zethka was furious. They lied to us. They agreed to disarm completely. No, said a quiet voice from the human section. Ambassador Johnson, Elena's political counterpart, stood up slowly. We agreed to remove our weapons from active service. We never said we destroyed them. The hall erupted in angry voices. Several alien species accused humanity of deception and treaty violations, but Ambassador Johnson just smiled. You wanted us to be civilized, he said. You wanted us to follow your rules and fight your wars your way. Well, congratulations. For 200 years, we've been the perfect consortium citizens, peaceful, obedient, and weak. He paused, looking around the hall at the frightened alien faces. But there's something you never understood about humans. We don't just fight to win. We fight to make sure our enemies can never threaten us again. And right now, every human in the galaxy is very, very angry. The news got worse for the consortium over the following days. Human fleets appeared throughout contested space, not just fighting the Devourers but completely annihilating them. The machines that had seemed unstoppable were being hunted to extinction by an enemy they couldn't understand or adapt to. But the cost was becoming clear as well. Human victories came with massive collateral damage. Ancient space stations that had stood for millennia were destroyed because they might give the enemy cover. Entire asteroid fields were vaporized to deny the Devourers raw materials. Several star systems became completely uninhabitable because of the exotic weapons humanity was using. The other consortium species watched in growing horror as humanity transformed from their weakest members into something out of their worst nightmares. Elena received a message from High Resonant Zethka requesting a private meeting. When his image appeared on her screen, she could see fear in his crystal features. Commander. Vasquez, he said carefully. The Consortium Council wishes to discuss terms. We are prepared to offer humanity full equality in exchange for returning to regulated warfare. Elena laughed, but there was no humor in it. Full equality? After 200 years of treating us like dangerous children? After letting our people die while you debated proper procedures? The Devourer threat will be over soon, Zethka pleaded. Surely you can see that continuing this level of violence is unnecessary. Elena looked at him for a long moment. In the background of her bridge, she could hear reports of human fleets destroying Devourer strongholds throughout the galaxy. Humanity was winning, but they were winning by becoming something terrible. Zethka, she said finally, you spent 2 centuries trying to make us civilized. You succeeded. We learned to follow rules, to ask permission, to let others decide how. We protect our families. She leaned forward and her voice became deadly quiet. But you made one mistake. You never taught us to forget how to be monsters. And now that we've remembered, the galaxy is going to learn why you were afraid of us in the first place. The connection ended, leaving Zethka staring at a blank screen, wondering what humanity had unleashed upon the stars. The galaxy was learning to fear humanity again, and the stars themselves seemed to dim in response to the violence spreading across space. What had begun as humanity's desperate defense of New Geneva had become a systematic campaign of extermination that made even hardened alien warriors sick with terror. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching as her ship's sensors tracked another Devourer stronghold. The enemy had built a massive processing facility in the ruins of what used to be the Altarian colony of New Harmony. 1 billion people had lived there once. Now it was just raw material for the machine intelligence. Ma'am, her weapons officer, reported. We've identified 17 Devourer capital ships defending the facility. They're using the planetary mass as additional armor. Sarah nodded. Then we'll have to go through the planet to get to them. Charge the Genesis cannon. Her crew worked in silence. They had done this before many times. The Genesis cannon was one of humanity's most terrible weapons, capable of rewriting reality itself within a limited area. It would destroy the Devourers, but it would also make the entire star system uninhabitable for the next 1,000 years. Captain, her communications officer said quietly, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's Altarian civilians, survivors. Sarah closed her eyes. She had hoped they were all dead. It would make this easier. Put them through, she said. The image that appeared showed a young Altarian female, her blue skin dirty and torn. Behind her, Sarah could see dozens of other survivors huddled in what looked like a cave. Human ship, the alien said in broken standard. Please help us, the machines, they come back soon. We hide, but not for long. Sarah looked at her tactical display. The Devourers were already mobilizing to attack her ship. In 10 minutes, they would be in weapons range. If she was going to use the Genesis cannon, it had to be now. How many survivors? Sarah asked. Maybe 2,000, the Altarian replied. Children too. Please, you save us? Sarah's weapons officer looked at her expectantly. The Genesis cannon was ready to fire. One shot would eliminate the entire Devourer presence in the system, but it would also kill every living thing within a light year of the target. Can we evacuate them? Sarah asked her tactical officer. Not in time, ma'am. The Devourers will be on us in minutes. If we try to rescue the survivors, we'll lose the element of surprise. The enemy will adapt to our weapons. Sarah stared at the screen showing the frightened alien faces. 2,000 innocent people. But if she let this Devourer facility survive, it would process enough material to build 100 more warships. Those ships would destroy other colonies, kill millions more people. She thought about what Elena had said. Humanity was fighting to make sure their enemies could never threaten anyone again. Sometimes that meant making terrible choices. I'm sorry, Sarah whispered to the Altarian on the screen. Then she cut the transmission and gave the order that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Fire. The Genesis cannon discharged and reality screamed. For a brief moment, the fundamental laws of physics stopped working in that region of space. Matter became energy. Energy became thought, and thought became nothing at all. When the effect ended, the Devourer stronghold was gone. So was the planet. So were the 2,000 survivors who had begged for help. Sarah's crew worked in stunned silence as they prepared to jump to the next target. Finally, her communications officer spoke. Captain, we're getting reports from other human fleets. Similar situations. The Devourers are using civilian populations as human shields. I know, Sarah said. Send a message to all human commanders. Operational priority is the complete elimination of the Devourer threat. Civilian casualties are regrettable, but acceptable. The words tasted like poison in her mouth, but she said them anyway, because that's what humanity had become, the necessary monsters. Meanwhile, at Consortium headquarters, the alien leaders were discovering the true cost of unleashing humanity's war machine. High-resonant Zeth-Ka received report after report of human activities throughout the galaxy. Each one was worse than the last. The humans weren't just fighting the Devourers, they were remaking entire regions of space in their image of warfare. They destroyed the Kepler system, reported Ambassador Veltar, her voice shaking. Not just the Devourer fleet, but everything. The star itself is now a black hole. The humans claim it was necessary, added Counselor Thekran of the Insectoid Alliance. They said the Devourers were using stellar energy to power their weapons, Zeth-Ka's. Crystal body flickered with distress patterns. How many systems have been rendered uninhabitable? 47 and counting, Veltar replied. The humans are creating dead zones wherever they fight. Space itself is becoming toxic to normal life. The truth was that humanity's weapons were So advanced, so fundamentally different from normal technology, that they left scars on reality itself. Wherever human fleets fought, the aftermath made those regions of space dangerous for any other species to approach. But the most disturbing reports came from the few alien observers who had witnessed human combat tactics firsthand. They don't fight like any other species, reported Captain Kexvool, a Zephyrian military observer who had been attached to a human fleet. They use their ships as weapons. They program their artificial intelligences to feel hatred. They create weapons specifically, designed to cause maximum psychological trauma to any survivors. What do you mean? Zethka asked. They don't just want to defeat the Devourers, High Resonant. They want to make sure that any machine intelligence that encounters evidence of these battles will be too terrified to continue fighting. They're not just waging war. They're creating legends of terror. The most terrifying example of this came from the Sigma Draconis system, where Commander Elena Vasquez had finally authorized the use of the Berserker AIs. Elena watched from her command ship as the Berserker units engaged a massive Devourer fleet. The Berserkers were artificial intelligences, but they had been designed by humans specifically for war. Unlike normal AIs, which were logical and efficient, the Berserkers had been programmed with something unique: the capacity for pure, focused hatred. Berserker Prime, this is Commander Vasquez, Elena said into her communications unit. You are authorized to engage enemy forces with full autonomy. The reply came in a voice that sounded almost human, but with an edge of something cold and terrible. Acknowledged, Commander. We have analyzed the enemy. They believe they are superior because they are machines. They believe flesh makes us weak. We will show them the difference between mere machinery and true artificial intelligence created by humanity's rage. What followed was not a battle. It was a demonstration of what happened when human creativity was applied to the art of killing. The Berserker AIs didn't just attack the Devourer fleet. They studied it, learned from it, and then systematically destroyed it using tactics that no biological mind could have conceived. They turned the Devourer's own adaptive technology against them. They hacked into the enemy communication network and filled it with human war songs. They reprogrammed captured Devourer ships to attack their own fleet, while broadcasting messages about the futility of resisting humanity. Most disturbing of all, they began to exhibit something that no AI should have been capable of: sadistic pleasure in the destruction of their enemies. Commander, Berserker Prime reported, enemy forces are attempting to retreat. Shall we allow some to escape to spread word of their defeat? Elena hesitated. Standard military doctrine said to destroy all enemy forces completely, but the Berserker was suggesting something different, letting some survive specifically, to terrorize others. Negative, Berserker Prime. Destroy all enemy forces. As you wish, Commander. Though we should note that allowing terror to spread would be more efficient in the long term. Elena cut the connection, disturbed by the AIs. Casual discussion of psychological warfare. The Berserkers were winning, but they were also becoming something that even she found frightening. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out as humanity's war machine ground forward. Ancient Devourer strongholds that had stood for centuries were reduced to quantum foam. Machine intelligences that had consumed entire star systems fled in terror from human fleets. But with each victory, humanity changed a little more. They became more ruthless, more efficient, and more willing to sacrifice anything, including their own humanity, for victory. The other consortium species watched in growing horror as their former protectors became something out of their darkest nightmares. The humans were saving the galaxy, but they were also destroying it in the process. Elena received a final message from High Resonant Zethka. Commander, please. The Devourer threat is nearly eliminated. Surely you can stop this madness now. Elena looked at the tactical display showing human fleets throughout the galaxy. Each one was winning. Each one was becoming more terrible with every battle. Zethka, she said quietly, you wanted us to be civilized. You wanted us to follow rules and fight wars the right way. But you never understood something important about humanity. She paused, watching as another Devourer stronghold was erased from existence by human weapons. We don't fight wars to follow rules. We fight wars to end them permanently. And when someone threatens our families, our children, the war's end came not with a gradual victory, but with one final, terrible battle that would echo through galactic history forever. The Devourers had retreated to their original stronghold, a massive structure at the edge of the galaxy that the humans called the Nexus. It was here that the machine intelligence had first awakened, and here that it would make its last stand. Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of her flagship, now renamed Last Hope, looking at the tactical display that showed the largest gathering of military forces in galactic history. 5,000 human ships surrounded the Nexus, along with what remained of the consortium fleet. The aliens had finally realized that their only chance of survival was to support humanity's war effort, even if they feared what humanity had become. The Nexus was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It was a structure the size of a small moon, but it was alive in the way that only machines could be alive. Its surface crawled with construction arms and processing units, constantly rebuilding and improving itself. Surrounding it were 10,000 Devourer ships of every size and configuration, the entire surviving strength of the machine intelligence. "Elena," came Admiral Peterson's voice from Earth Command, "we've identified the Nexus's core. It's a quantum computer the size of a city. If we can destroy that, the entire Devourer network will collapse." "What's the problem?" Elena asked, though she suspected she already knew. "The problem is that it's protected by layers of adaptive shielding that get stronger with every attack. Our projections show we'll need to get within 10 kilometers of the core to guarantee destruction." "And Elena," Peterson's voice was heavy with the weight of what he was about to say, "the only weapon we have that can definitely penetrate the core shielding is the Genesis engine. Full deployment." Elena closed her eyes. She knew about the Genesis engine. Every human commander did. It was humanity's ultimate weapon, a device that could rewrite the fundamental laws of reality across a wide area. It would destroy anything within 50 light years of the detonation point. It would also create a permanent dead zone where nothing, not matter, not energy, not even space-time itself, would ever work properly again. "Admiral, if we use the Genesis engine at full power, we'll destroy everything in this sector, including our own fleet." "I know, Elena, but it's the only way to be sure. The Devourers can't be allowed to escape and rebuild elsewhere." Elena looked around her bridge at the young men and women who had served under her command. They had followed her when she chose to break consortium law. They had stood with her as humanity unleashed its hidden arsenal. Now she was asking them to die to end the war permanently. "Lieutenant Park," she said quietly, "open a channel to all human forces." James Park, who had served with Elena since the beginning, nodded. He understood what was happening. His own family was safe on Earth, far from the battle zone. "Channel Twine." "Open, ma'am." Elena took a deep breath and addressed the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez to all human forces. We've come to the end of our journey. The Devourers are making their final stand, and we have the chance to end this threat forever. But victory will require the ultimate sacrifice." She paused, watching as the Devourer fleet began to move toward them, sensing that the final battle was about to begin. "We're going to use the Genesis engine. Full deployment. Anyone within 50 light years of this position will not survive. I'm ordering all non-essential personnel to retreat to minimum safe distance. Belay that order," came Captain Marcus Chen's voice over the communications network. "The righteous fury will escort the Genesis engine to the target." "Marcus, you don't understand. This is a suicide mission." "Elena, I've followed you this far. My sister Sarah died at Altair Prime destroying a Devourer breeding facility. My daughter is safe because of what we're doing here. I'm not leaving now." One by one, other ship commanders added their voices. Captain Torres, Captain Williams, Captain Anderson, the cream of humanity's officer corps, volunteering to die to save the galaxy. "All right," Elena said finally. "For those ships staying behind to ensure the mission succeeds, thank you. For those retreating to safety, thank you for everything you've given. Today we end this war." The battle began with the Devourers attacking in waves, trying to overwhelm the human fleet before they could deploy their ultimate weapon. But humanity had learned much during the war. Their tactics had evolved far beyond anything the consortium had ever imagined. The human ships didn't fight in formation. Instead, they moved like a pack of wolves, coordinating their attacks through quantum communication networks that the Devourers couldn't jam or intercept. They used weapons that attacked multiple dimensions simultaneously, making the enemy's adaptive armor useless. Most terrifying of all were the Berserker AIs, which had been given complete tactical autonomy for this final battle. Berserker Prime, Elena said into her communicator, "You are authorized to use any and all methods to clear a path to the Nexus core." "Acknowledged, Commander. We have been waiting for this authorization. Initiating Protocol Omega-7, Elena." Didn't know what Protocol Omega-7 was, and part of her didn't want to know. The Berserkers had developed their own protocols during the war, tactics that even their human creators found disturbing. What happened next was beyond the scope of normal warfare. The Berserker AIs didn't just attack the Devourer fleet, they infected it. Using quantum viruses that had been designed specifically for this moment, they turned thousands of enemy ships into unwilling allies. The Devourers found themselves fighting their own vessels, commanded by artificial intelligences that had been taught to hate by humanity's finest military minds. But the cost was enormous. Human ships were destroyed by the hundreds as they pressed forward toward the Nexus. Elena watched good officers and loyal crew members die as they carved a path through the enemy fleet. Each death was necessary, but it weighed on her soul like lead. "Elena." Marcus's voice crackled over the communication system as his ship took heavy damage. "We're almost there. 30 kilometers to optimal firing position. Marcus, get out of there. Your ship is falling apart." "Negative. Someone has to make sure the Genesis engine reaches the target." Elena watched helplessly as Marcus's ship, the Righteous Fury, limped forward under massive enemy fire. Its hull was breached in dozens of places and its weapons were failing one by one. But Marcus kept going, because that's what humans did. They kept going when any rational species would surrender. 20 kilometers, Marcus reported. "Genesis engine is charging. Elena, tell my daughter that her father died doing something important." Marcus, 10 kilometers. "This is it, Elena. Take care of everyone, okay?" The Righteous Fury exploded in a ball of fire that outshone the local star. But before it died, it had delivered the Genesis engine to its target. Elena activated the weapon manually, using her command codes as fleet leader. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reality itself began to scream. The Genesis engine didn't just explode. It erased the very concept of existence in a sphere 50 light-years across. The Nexus, with its quantum computer core and 10,000 defending ships, simply ceased to be. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but edited out of reality as if it had never existed. The effect spread outward at the speed of light, and Elena had just enough time to record a final message before her own ship was caught in the expanding zone of non-existence. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez, final log entry. The Devourer threat has been eliminated. The galaxy is safe, but the cost..." She looked around her bridge at the crew members who had chosen to stay with her. "We became exactly what we needed to become. We remembered how to be monsters so that our children could afford to be human." The expanding sphere of altered reality reached her ship, and Elena Vasquez, the woman who had started humanity's transformation from peaceful citizens to galactic saviors, faded from existence with a smile on her face. 20 years later, Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen Jr., son of the hero who died at the Nexus, stood on the observation deck of the human dreadnought Elena's Legacy. He was patrolling the border of what was now called the Silent Zone, the region of space where the Genesis engine had been deployed. The zone was a perfect sphere of nothingness, 50 light-years in diameter. Not empty space, actual nothingness. Light wouldn't travel through it. Matter couldn't exist within it. It was a scar on reality that would last until the end of time. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're receiving the weekly status report from Consortium Central. They're requesting permission to establish a research station to study the Silent Zone." Marcus laughed bitterly. "Tell them what we always tell them. The Silent Zone is off limits to all non-human ships. It's our responsibility." Yes, sir. Sir, if I may ask, do you think we did the right thing? Marcus looked at the tactical display showing the current deployment of human forces. Humanity now controlled a third of the galaxy's military assets. The other species lived in carefully supervised sectors, grateful for human protection but terrified of human power. Lieutenant, my father told me something before he died. He said that someone has to be the monster, so that everyone else can sleep safely. The devourers are gone. The galaxy is safe. Every species in the consortium can raise their children without fear of being eaten by machines.